Hello, you're welcome to this special CNBC Africa broadcast of the Presidential Policy Dialogue. We're reaching you from the Transcorp Hilton Hotel in Abuja, Nigeria, at the 18th Nigeria Economic Summit meeting. I'm Wole Famurewa, and with me is a very distinguished panel of private sector people, people from the government, the authorities that are moving change in Nigeria, and we're here to have a frank discussion about what it takes to make Nigeria a better place. The theme of today's conference is deregulation, cost of governance, and Nigeria's economic prospects. I'd like to just get through with the introductions, and at some point we'll get into the debate. Joining me to co-moderate today's program is Frank Aigbogun. He's the publisher of Business Day Nigeria. And Frank, it's great to have you on the show today. And then I'd like to move on to introduce the Vice President, His Excellency Namadi Sambo. Thank you so much, Mr. Vice President, for coming for joining us on this debate.
Thank you.
And I'll start by introducing the rest of the panel. First with Keith Richards. He's the CEO of Promasidor. He'll be giving us a perspective of a foreign investor, someone who has been in Nigeria for a while, giving us a sense of what has changed over the last 1 year, and of course what to expect going forward. Keith, it's great to have you as part of the panel today. And next to Keith, we have Professor Paul Reynolds. He's the Director of Global Economic Policy Institute. He has a lot to share about deregulation, which is a key part of this summit this year. Professor Reynolds, it's great to have you on the panel today.
Thank you.
We also have Mr. Tony Elumelu. He's the chair of Hares Holdings Limited. He also has interest across Africa, and of course he can give us the views of a private investor, not only in Nigeria, but of course outside Africa. It's great to have you on the panel today, Tony. And of course we have Dr. Ngozi Okojo-Iweala. She's the Coordinating Minister of the Economy and Minister of Finance. She'll be giving us, of course, more perspective from the government side. Thank you so much, Minister, for joining us.
Thank you.
We also have on the panel Dr. Ayodeji Adewumi. He's the co-founder of Jobberman.com. He'll be giving us his thoughts on the moves to grow, to create jobs in Nigeria, and of course, the thoughts of a young entrepreneur in Nigeria right now. Thank you so much for joining us as well. And lastly, we have Wonu Adetayo. She's the director at the NESG. She's also in the private sector in Nigeria. She'll also be sharing her thoughts on the discussions today. Thank you so much, Wonu, for joining us as well. So it promises to be a very interesting discussion, and I'd like to kick things off by bringing Mr. Vice President into the discussion. If you can, Mr. Vice President, can you just share with us, holistically over the last 1 year, a lot has changed in the country. It's been a tough year, especially when you consider the floods and consider other issues, especially in the global economic context. Your thoughts on the progress we've made in Nigeria over the last 1 year and the key achievements of the current administration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wole. We have gone a long way, as has been presented during the opening of this session. There has been tremendous progress in our economic development in Nigeria. The key avenue is the transformation agenda of Mr. President. And in this line, the issue of reforms, which is directly related to this question of deregulation. The economy is being put in a direction where today we have achieved a lot into addressing the factors that have been militating against our growth. And the analysis has clearly shown by economic indicators. We have seen this morning that our growth is in the right direction. Our foreign reserves have increased from $32 billion 2 years ago to about $45 billion today. We have our GDP in the right direction, and in the areas of addressing those factors that are militating our growth, against our growth, that include the issue of power supply. When we came as an administration, The average power generation in Nigeria was about 2,500 megawatts, and today we are above 4,000 megawatts. And we are progressing. We are already taking the area of addressing a major sector, the transport sector. In the transportation sector, we are rehabilitating all the abandoned railway system in this country. We are addressing the issue of road networks in the country. All key sectoral roads that are connecting the country are being dualized in an expressway manner, and the construction have reached advanced stage. We are addressing the area of our waterways. The River Niger dredging has been completed. We are now working on the River Benue dredging. The port reforms are working. From 14 agencies in the port, we have only 7 today, and we have reduced the time for clearing goods from about 60 days to less than 7 days today. We are in advanced stage of addressing the issue of deficiency in the actual physical port facilities. You will recall that our ports are over 40 years old, and their capacities are being exhausted. And we have reached advanced stage in developing 2 deep sea ports, one in Lagos and one in Port Harcourt.
Just wondering, before the port comes in Lagos, the new modern port, and the one in Port Harcourt, what are we doing to ensure that your customers who come and pay almost $1 trillion in a year park conveniently, drive out safely without injuring or killing someone as they exit the port with their containers?
I just want to make a couple of points to amplify what His Excellency Mr. Vice President said about the general direction of the economy. First and foremost, I think we must recognize one thing. Before you can even look at the sectors of the economy and try to change them and strengthen and create jobs, you must have macroeconomic stability. And one clear area where the government has done well, as everybody has acknowledged, independently by the ratings, independently, Professor Reynolds mentioned it, the competitiveness index shows we climbed from 121 to 39 in 1 year, as Frank Nweke II said. We have brought a measure as a government of macroeconomic stability, and that is because we've also introduced a measure of fiscal discipline that was better than what was there. Let me say it is not that we've done everything, but that provides a bedrock. As a result of that, if you talk to the governor of the central bank with whom I work, the fact that reserves are climbing now is not a miracle. It happens because of greater proper fiscal management. We now have about 9 billion in the excess crude account. Of course, we'll use some of it for paying some of the oil subsidies, but we've managed to save that. Last year, it was 4 billion. We are now at more than double. We also have the Sovereign Wealth Fund, as you said. I'm just citing a few areas where find, macro. Now, why is that important? Because we tend to forget what lays the basis for success in the economy. We mustn't forget that. If your exchange rate is relatively stable because you've got a cushion of reserves and a buffer in the excess crude account, then businesses can plan. All of these things don't come easy. So that's the first point I want to make, and I think we need to make sure that we continue on a platform where that continues to be successful. The second point is that the country is leading probably one of the most robust privatization programs in the world. We've actually done the research. And no country has so thoroughly privatized in its power sector, the generation, distribution, and also management of the private management of the transmission all at once. So this is organizations are looking to this country as a case study, that if we complete this and do it successfully, which Mr. Vice President and Mr. President are driving, This will be a landmark. It hasn't really been done elsewhere before in this way, and that's a big achievement. Look, what we really need is to talk constantly of diversification of the base of this economy. That word has not come in because I think we've said it so many times. So now we are talking of deregulation. But this economy needs to diversify. Non-oil revenues need to grow. And I'm happy to announce to you that we've managed to, with the work done by the Federal Inland Revenue Service, we've tripled over the past 6 years our non-oil revenue collection. So we are now at about 70-30. So non-oil revenues are now 30% and oil revenue 70%. And we'll continue, the drive is to continue to drive that down to a position where we at least try to get to 60-40, and we're on the way. So there are few good things that we can talk about. Now, the challenges, of course, have to be recognized. The cost of governance that we talked about. Again, everybody talks about the high recurrent costs. That's well recognized, needs to come down. And we are driving that down. We've come down from about 77% in 2010. We are now, for the 2013 budget, at 68%, 68.8%. And we are going to continue to drive that down over the medium term. Now, you know, the real sectors. In order for us to take advantage of the stable macroeconomic framework and all the other things we are doing under fiscal and monetary policy, we have to start looking at real sector, and that is infrastructure is key. So your question about the ports is very pertinent. We were down to look at those roads and inspect the ports about 4 or 5 months ago. And shortly after that, a process was put in place. As you know, on that road leading to Apapa and Tinkan Island, a long 2-3 mile, very bad road, potholes and everything. Inside the port's the same, as you said, with huge containers. And for years, it's been impassable. But in an operation in which the federal government and the state government combined, and Lagos State combined, using police and military, and led by Professor Sylvester Monye, who is the head of the task force to help with these roads, it was cleared. And people who were not able to pass that road began to pass on that road for the first time. Now, the issue is sustaining that momentum. And that has to do with tackling the infrastructural problems. So what are we doing? The Minister of Works, actually 2 things. The federal government approved, Federal Executive Council approved a contract for the road inside the Apapa port itself, which is in bad shape, to reconstruct that road. I think it totally needs to be reconstructed. And so the Minister of Transport is dealing with that. Contract is already approved. The access road, ditto. We had Julius Berger working on one side. I think we need them to now continue work on the other. The Minister of Works is looking at that. There's the issue of parking. And a debate has been going on. There's a piece of land where, you know, it would be good to have a trailer park there. And between the state government and the federal government, we're debating, we would like maybe to use that as to make it into a trailer park under government construction. Lagos State is saying, why not let a private sector entity take that over? And that's where the discussion is. But there's actual discussion going on about creating a trailer park along there that could then divert some of those tractor trailers and so on. At the same time, the rail, we inspected the railroad there, the railroad tracks, to see how they can be revitalized, to take off some of the track. Eventually, that must be done. We can't just depend on that road to take all the traffic. So three-pronged approach to tackle that problem. We're very conscious of it, and we have launched specific projects to deal with those. And I believe that when those come to fruition, this problem will be taken care of. Thank you.
I'm quite sure a lot of businesses will be happy to hear about the plans to extend the rails to the ports, because clearly
no, the rail is already there, but it has been moribund,
right,
and has not been used. So it's a question you have to renew the track and put on the single gauge line, is at least to evacuate some of the goods out of the port.
Right. Before going to a break, I just want us to touch the issue of deregulation. It's a major theme of today's event, and I want to get your thoughts, Mr. Vice President, on the oil sector. It's something that has grabbed the headlines quite a bit over the last 1 year. There are reports of theft. $7 billion is the figure that has been thrown out there in terms of what Nigeria is losing because of corruption in that sector. But even before that, I want us to talk about the issue of the subsidies. It's a big issue all of this year. Clearly, the government has tried to tackle that. We've seen an inquiry into this process. But can you just give us an update on where we're going with respect to deregulating Nigeria's oil and gas space?
Any good economist will surely accept that the answer for our faster growth and realistic growth in that sector is to deregulate it. And so therefore, that is a policy that as an administration we believe in. And even Professor Paul did mention this morning on the need to do that as a realistic avenue. So therefore, as a question of economic realities, that is the way to go. So it is work in progress. We are at this stage today, and we believe that at the end of the day, this country, at one time or the other, must deregulate because it is a bad economic policy. So this is the issue when it comes to that. The deregulation is the best answer. But, you know, this is a democratic government. Even certain economic policies, no matter how good they are, you have to, you know, take them in a manner in consideration of the national view. So we are at the stage we are today, and we believe that Nigerians will come to understand at the right time that really what is being obtained today is not the right position, and the best position is to open up and deregulate the oil and gas sector.
Right, but if you can share very briefly on how we're going to move this issue of the reform of the oil and gas space forward. The petroleum industry bill seems to be stuck in Parliament. It's been an issue that we've been discussing for the most of the last 4 years.
No, the PIB is not stuck in the National Assembly. The National Assembly are working on it. And, you know, the PIB is a document that is in the right direction. And I can assure you that the National Assembly are not sitting on it. They are working on it, and it's work in progress. And every sector of this country is anxious to have the PIB ready. And I believe that includes the National Assembly members. And they will work on it as fast as possible.
But now I want to talk a bit about Nigeria's competitiveness. And I want to direct the next question to you, Mr. Tony Elumelu. Now, you are playing a key role in the National Competitiveness Council of Nigeria, and I want to get your thoughts on how you see Nigeria emerging in the global community, global economy, as a competitive nation to attract those much needed foreign direct investments, foreign portfolio investments, and so forth.
The power sector privatization, I think, is a wonderful initiative of government, and I believe it's been handled very well so far. We, as a country, produce about 4,000 megawatts, or consume about 4,000 megawatts now. We believe that with the transmission and also with the private sector involvement now, that should go up significantly. The power plant that we're involved in, the Wole power plant, current production is about 300 megawatts. Our plan is to increase it to 1,000 megawatts in 4.5 years. And I believe that other private sector investors also have this kind of plan for their own plants. So if we do this, one of the key things we need for the competitiveness of the Nigerian economy, which is having the power, would have been met. So I would say government is moving in the right direction, but there are a few areas also we'll talk about that we think government can do a little more so that we can get it right. But talking about competitiveness itself, and I like the figures that the Nigerian Economic Summit Group provided, we have done well. There's tremendous improvement. The macroeconomic policies we have in place now will help us even do better because it takes time, the lag effect. However, we need to, in my view, deal with some similarly soft issues, but yet very important. You know, the port.
And what are those issues?
Yeah, okay, the port is one of those issues. The second issue is, you know, the issue of, and it's unfortunate that the Senate leader is not here, because we would have liked to raise some issues. There are certain laws we need to look at again in the country. Certain law. And by the way, for me, government is not just federal government of Nigeria, or presidency and the ministry. It's the presidency, ministry, the state, the local government, the legislative arm, and also judiciary. We think there are some laws we need to look at. The titling law, the Land Use Act, for instance, in Nigeria, the titling laws, the foreclosure laws. People blame banks that the banks don't lend. You know, but we have so much land in this country that is not monetized because of certain laws we have. So we need to deal with some of these issues because they can truly change things very significantly for the country.
Right.
Another area I think we need to look at also to help improve our competitiveness is, you know, this issue of the judiciary. Mm-hmm. You know, from a guided perspective, you know, we need to respect contracts. If there are issues between parties, investors have issues, the law process, the legal process for adjudicating, for bringing this matter to a closure should be very fast, should be faster than what it is today.
Right.
Some of these similarly soft issues do affect significantly the perception people have of the country and how people want to engage in terms of doing business with the country. I think also that now this federal government, you know, when His Excellency spoke, he talked about agriculture, what is happening in the agri-space, and what we are doing as a country. Every one of us believe that so much is happening in the agri-space right now, and if we continue, we'll make big success of it. But there are a few things we need to do in the value chain that Mr. President and Vice President talked about also. So for instance, as a country, with the population we have that is involved in farming, the commodity exchange issue in this country, we need to deal with it. We have the Abuja Commodity Exchange. It's not working as it should be working, so we should do something about it so that the farmers are further encouraged, because it's key for our economy.
All right. Tony, unfortunately, I really have to jump in. I want to get, Keith, your thoughts on this. Clearly, you're running a business. It's a national business. You're selling things from Lagos all the way to Sokoto. Give us your thoughts on the challenges you're facing as a manufacturer in Nigeria, and a manufacturer is, of course, taking his products national.
Manufacturers recognize that a lot has been done. Definitely, there's some very clear policies and there's some very clear intent. Some of the things that we're talking about are definitely there. But the issue for manufacturers, and it's also the issue for potential inward investors, because I've been here a long time, I tend to be asked to talk to potential investors in manufacturing. The concerns are about the actual implementation. And I frequently quote the 3 areas of concern that new investors invariably focus on. And those 3 areas are security, corruption, and the ease of doing business. So, putting aside infrastructure, those 3 issues, security, we know around us what's happening, but the impact of that, I think, has yet to be seen. So our products, for example, are sold at 10 naira, 20 naira. They're ordinary people. And this year has seen a contraction of that lower end markets, because it's the rural areas that have been hit by these disruptions, whether it's what's going on in the north or the kind of criminal activity and kidnapping in the east. That's security. Corruption. People say to me, Keith, if we come to Nigeria, is it possible to do business without breaching our codes of conduct, Sarbanes-Oxley and that kind of thing? And all I can say is, thank God, I don't have to do business with levels of government. When I'm selling milk, it's very clear, you know, if I want to bribe them, I put 2 more grams in a sachet.
It probably costs you more to produce. You have to bribe the customer.
But that is a very, very clear concern for potential investors. And then the ease of doing business, the kind of regulatory issues that we talk about, the multiplicity of different agencies. Now, the Stephen Orenshea report has some controversial areas to it, but the bulk of it, I think, is fairly clear, the multiplicity of agencies, but that only covers at federal level. Where we suffer is the multiplicity between federal and state, parastatal, and that's where you get this individual taxation, and a taxation on various charges which never get recognized and never get into the national coffers. Right. So these are 3 things in terms of implementation that is preventing a really fast track of the kind of excellent policies and the macroeconomic umbrella that's currently being provided.
Right, thank you, Keith. After the break, we'll come back and continue our presidential policy dialogue. It's at the 18th Nigerian Economic Summit meeting in the Transcorp Hilton Hotel in Abuja. After the break, we take this further.